The rain hammered against the windows of our little cottage in the Cotswolds, mirroring the storm brewing inside me. For 20 years, Isolde and I had built a life here, a life I thought was unshakable. I'm Barnaby, a mechanic by trade, 47 years old, and I built it with my own two hands. I'd always been a practical man, good with engines, good with fixing things. But some things, like a broken heart, can't be fixed with a wrench, and some WD-40 it started subtly, like a slow leak in a radiator. Isolde, my wife, a vibrant artist with a spirit as bright as her paintings, began to change. The laughter that once filled our home seemed to fade, replaced by a quiet, almost melancholic silence. She started working late at the gallery in Stow-on-the-Wold where she showcased her art. Late nights became frequent, and her explanations grew vague. "Just dealing with a difficult client, Barnaby," she'd say, her eyes darting away from mine. I wanted to believe her, I truly did. But a knot of unease tightened in my stomach with each passing day. One Tuesday, Isolde said she had a private showing for a potential buyer, a wealthy collector from London. She dressed with extra care, a splash of crimson lipstick against her porcelain skin. As she turned to leave, I noticed a new perfume, a sharp, unfamiliar scent that stung my nostrils. "Have a good evening, love," I said, the words feeling hollow even to my own ears. The house felt empty without her, the silence amplifying my growing suspicions. I tried to distract myself, tinkering with my old Triumph motorcycle in the garage. But my mind kept drifting back to Isolde, to the changes I'd seen in her, to the lies I felt she was telling. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. Later that night, around 11, a sudden impulse seized me. I couldn't explain it, but I had to know. I grabbed my jacket, jumped into my old Land Rover, and drove towards Stow-on-the-Wold. The gallery was dark, but I noticed a single light on in the back room. I parked down the street, my heart pounding in my chest, and walked towards the alley behind the building. The back door was slightly ajar. I hesitated, my conscience warring with my gut feeling. But the need to know, the fear of what I might find, pushed me forward. I slipped inside, the musty smell of paint and canvas filling my nostrils. I crept towards the back room, the light growing brighter with each step, and then I saw them. Through the crack in the door, I saw Isolde and a man locked in a passionate embrace. It wasn't the wealthy collector from London. It was Caspian, the gallery owner, a man with a greasy smile and eyes that always lingered a little too long on my wife. They were kissing, their bodies pressed together, oblivious to the world outside. I stood there frozen, the blood draining from my face. The air seemed to thicken, making it hard to breathe. My world, the world I had so carefully built, shattered before my eyes. The sound of my own gasp betrayed me. Caspian pulled away from Isolde, his eyes widening in surprise. Isolde turned, her face a mask of shock and guilt. "Barnaby," she whispered, her voice trembling. "It's not what you think." But it was exactly what I thought. All the lies, all the late nights, all the subtle changes suddenly made sense. I had been a fool, blinded by my love for her, unwilling to see the truth that had been staring me in the face. Rage, hot and consuming, surged through me. I wanted to scream, to lash out, to destroy everything in sight, but I couldn't. I just stood there, numb, the pain a physical ache in my chest. "Get out, Barnaby," Caspian said, his voice laced with arrogance. "This is none of your business, none of my business," I repeated, my voice barely a whisper. "She's my wife." "Was your wife," Isolde corrected, her words like a knife twisting in my heart. "I was going to tell you, Barnaby. I just didn't know how." "Tell me what?" I asked, the question laced with a bitter irony. "Tell me that you've been sleeping with him behind my back. Tell me that our marriage, our life together, has been a lie." Isolde didn't answer. She just looked at me, her eyes filled with a mixture of guilt and defiance. In that moment, I knew it was over. The woman I loved, the woman I thought I knew, was gone. In her place stood a stranger, a betrayer, a liar. I turned and walked away, the image of Isolde and Caspian seared into my memory. I stumbled back to my Land Rover, started the engine, and drove blindly through the rain-soaked streets. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I had to get away, to escape the pain and the betrayal. I spent the next few days in a daze, barely eating, barely sleeping. I wandered aimlessly around the cottage, haunted by memories of Isolde, of our life together. Every object, every photograph, every corner of the house reminded me of her, of the love we had shared, of the life that was now shattered beyond repair. Our friend Mallory came by to check on me. She was a kind, compassionate woman, a potter with a gentle soul. She had always been fond of Isolde, but she was also fiercely loyal to me. When I told her what had happened, her face hardened with anger. "That bitch," she spat, her voice uncharacteristically harsh. "I always knew there was something shifty about that Caspian. He's a snake, Barnaby, a smooth-talking charmer with no morals." "I don't understand, Mallory," I said, my voice breaking. Why would she do this to me? I loved her. I gave her everything she ever wanted." Mallory sighed, her eyes filled with pity. "Sometimes, Barnaby, love isn't enough. Some people are just never satisfied. They always want more, even if it means hurting the ones they love." She stayed with me for a few days, offering comfort and support. She helped me pack Isolde's things, boxing up her clothes, her paintings, her memories. It was a painful process, like tearing a piece of my own heart away. But it was necessary. I couldn't stay in that house, surrounded by the ghosts of our past. I decided to move away, to start a new life somewhere else. I sold the cottage, packed my belongings, and drove north towards the Lake District. I had always loved the mountains, the rugged beauty of the landscape. I hoped that the solitude and the fresh air would help me heal, would help me forget. I found a small workshop in Keswick, a town nestled beside Derwentwater. It was a far cry from the gallery in Stow-on-the-Wold, but it was mine. I spent my days repairing cars, fixing engines, losing myself in the familiar comfort of mechanics. The work was hard, but it was honest. It kept my hands busy and my mind occupied. Months passed. The pain of Isolde's betrayal began to fade, replaced by a dull ache of sadness. I started to meet new people, to make new friends. I even started to think about dating again, although the thought of trusting another woman terrified me. One evening, I was having a pint at the local pub when I overheard a conversation that made my blood run cold. Two men were talking about a gallery owner from Stow-on-the-Wold, a man named Caspian, who had recently been arrested for fraud. Apparently, he had been embezzling money from the gallery, using it to fund his lavish lifestyle. I listened intently, piecing together the details. It turned out that Caspian had been deeply in debt, struggling to keep the gallery afloat. He had been desperate for money, and he had seen Isolde as his ticket to financial security. He had seduced her, manipulated her, and used her to gain access to her assets. I felt a strange mix of emotions. Relief that I had escaped a truly toxic situation. Anger that Isolde had been so easily manipulated. And a flicker of pity for the woman I had once loved. I knew I couldn't stay silent. I had to warn Isolde, to tell her the truth about Caspian. I found her number online and dialed it, my hand trembling. She answered on the third ring, her voice hesitant. "Hello, Isolde, it's Barnaby," I said, my voice low. There was a long silence. "Barnaby," she finally said, her voice filled with surprise. "What do you want?" "I need to tell you something about Caspian," I said. "He's not who you think he is." I told her everything I had heard about the fraud, about the embezzlement, about the lies. She listened in silence, her breath catching in her throat. When I finished, she spoke, her voice barely a whisper. "Oh, Barnaby," she said. "What have I done?" I didn't know what to say. I had told her the truth, but I couldn't take away the pain, the regret, the shame. "Just be careful, Isolde," I said. "He's a dangerous man." I hung up the phone, feeling a strange sense of closure. I had done what I needed to do. I had warned Isolde, and I had finally put the past behind me. I never spoke to Isolde again. But I heard through Mallory that she had left Caspian, that she was trying to rebuild her life. I hoped she would find happiness, that she would learn from her mistakes. But I knew that I could never forgive her, that the trust between us was broken beyond repair. I continued to live in Keswick, running my workshop, surrounded by the beauty of the Lake District. I found peace in the solitude, in the rhythm of my work, in the simple pleasures of life. I learned to trust again, to love again, to open my heart to the possibility of happiness. One day, a woman came into my workshop with a broken-down car. Her name was Bront, and she was a writer, a storyteller with a kind heart and a gentle smile. We talked for hours about books, about life, about love. And as I listened to her voice, I felt a spark of hope ignite within me. Maybe, just maybe, I could find love again. Maybe, after all the pain and the betrayal, I could find my happy ending. Life is full of surprises, both good and bad. It can knock you down, break your heart, and leave you feeling lost and alone. But it can also offer you second chances, new beginnings, and the possibility of finding love again. You just have to be willing to open your heart, to let go of the past, and to embrace the future, whatever it may hold. And to you, dear listener, remember to always be true to yourself, to value loyalty, and to never take love for granted. For once trust is broken, it can never truly be repaired.